In this video, we're going to overhaul this Leyland Mini wiper motor. Alright, so the reason why I wanted to do this video is because this is the Australian version. So this was used in Mark II Minis and Leyland Minis here in Australia, and there are some differences between this one, the Australian built version, compared to the British version. So the first thing I need to do is get it pulled apart, and that way we can sort of have a look at the differences in there. A lot of it is to do with the park mechanism. I'm pretty sure the Australian version, the way the park switch works, that's different, and there may be other differences as well. So what I need to do to get started, I want to just disconnect all of this, the gearing off this end here. So the first thing I'll need to do is take off this cover. Okay, so let's have a look inside. So we'll remove this cover. One thing you notice is that nice yellow chromate finish on there, and when I restore this, that's what I want to try and achieve, that same finish. We'll take this back down to bare metal, zinc coat it, and then put it in the yellow chromate, and then, but that might be another video, or it might be this one, I'm not sure. Alright, so some things that you can look on here and see, there are some inscriptions in here, and the way the Australian Lucas wiper motors work is there's usually a number on here which indicates the build month and build year. So I can't see that through all this paint on there. So I'll clean that up in a moment. Alright, so in order to take out this section, I need to first of all remove this arm. Alright, so to get this off, there's like a circlip on the end here, and we just carefully take that off. I don't want to lose that. Alright, so that's what that looks like. So that's the first piece, and I'm just putting these on a bit of cardboard, laying them back down in the same order, that way I know how to put this back together. Okay, I'll just see if that is, I don't know if that is a separate, here we go, yep. There's another washer sitting on top. So that washer goes next. Okay, and then I don't think there's anything else there, so that just lifts straight off. And then once that's out, this should just come out. I think that just sits in there. Okay. Okay, now I'm not going to worry about this part for now, because that is more of an issue when you install it and so forth, but it'll get cleaned up. Probably just ditch that bit of tubing, and probably this will be degreased and cleaned up, but I'll leave that for now. I'll just put that to the side. Okay, we'll take a look at that. I'm not sure whether the internal part there comes out or not, but I'll leave that to the side because that can get cleaned up in a moment. And the next thing I want to do is remove the gear wheel here. So I'll just give you a look at the inscription on that. I don't know how well you can see it in the camera, but this says 32T. I'm guessing 32T, that doesn't sound right. 32T and then 105 degrees. Okay, so in order to remove this part, I do believe there's something on the back. There might be another circlip here. Let's take a look at that. Alright, so you got to, I couldn't find the right thing for this, but I've just got a couple of screwdrivers and just slowly wedging that out. And I'll just show you what it looks like. Okay, so that it's like that, and it sits into a groove into that pin. Alright, so that piece comes off first. I'll just leave that to the side. Then it looks like another washer on top. that one comes off. And then I believe that gear will just slide straight out. I think it might need a bit of persuasion. Oh no, it's coming. I'll just find an old screwdriver to push it through. Oh, that's coming out. Okay. Alright, out that comes. So I'm going to put this to the side and we can clean it up. I just want to point out what you see on this side here. You can sort of see 3 different trails. So it's all covered in grease, but there's 3 cleared paths. That is for the parking auto park mechanism. And you can see on this side here, you can see those 3 little pins sticking up. And well, it would make sense if I just undo that bit now. I'll just grab a Phillips screwdriver. Because this part is different on the Australian model compared to the UK model. So I'll just undo this cover and then you'll be able to see, I don't know, maybe it is the same, but from what I've looked at so far on the internet it seems different. Okay, so there's the cover. I'll just show you what that connector looks like. And I struggled to actually find wiring diagrams for this, but I think I understand how it works, but I'll do a little bit of research and try and provide you with a wiring diagram, because that will be useful. Okay, so that bit comes out, and then you can see there are 3 terminals here, which touch onto this. So underneath all that grease there is a metal plate on there, but I'll clean it off and then you can have a look at what that looks like. Alright, so first of all I'll just shift that to the side. I'll clean that down a bit. I'm just using a very old rag. So if I wipe all that down, you'll better see what it looks like underneath. And okay, so as expected, this side of the metal plate looks fine. This side looks, I do believe that's all rusted. And if that's rusty, it's not going to allow the auto park mechanism to work. I might just undo this one first. So that, there's a lock nut and then you use a screwdriver to undo that. It's pretty tight, I need to put a socket on there. Set 7/16. Okay. For the size of the thing, it wasn't that tight. Alright, I'll just take that piece out, and you can see how there's a gap there. It's just designed to take up any play. Alright, so the only other thing to undo now is these 2, and I think they're both 1/4 inch. I know they're bigger. .5/16. Okay. Alright, let's take both of them out. Alright, so the brushes are in this section here. So when I pull that out, it doesn't really matter because we're going to disassemble the whole thing anyway. I just want to point out one thing before I do pull that apart. There's a little triangle here, and then there's a little slit on the case there. So I don't know why that doesn't line up, and I don't know whether it's relevant or not, because the position of that is based on the screw hole in there, so it can only go on 2 ways, but I'm guessing the side with the notch goes where that is. And I really can't see that it would make a difference though. Alright, anyway, let's just get this apart. Okay. Okay, that'll just pull out. It's only just the magnets holding that in. I'll do that carefully, I don't want to damage it. So that's what that looks inside. If you can look right down the bottom, you can sort of see that yellow nichrome finish in there. Maybe not. Or even around the rim here. That's how the whole thing should be coated. And you can see bits of it through here. But at some point someone's painted this black. Someone's probably just done the whole engine bay black on a car. But we'll give that a bit of a clean up. Alright, I'll just move the rotor out of the way because I don't want that getting damaged. There's not much I can do with this. You can't really service it. Clean it down a bit and just clean up the contacts on here. They don't appear to be worn too badly. Okay, and then the last bit to show you is the actual brushes. Now, I know the UK models, and I do believe the UK model has a screw to hold these in, but on the Australian version, they're sort of like rivets, but it's going to be part of the main case, which would be pins when they're manufacturing this, place that on, and then they bash them all flat. So that you can't actually get it out, and it would be a pain to try and replace that. But those brushes, they look a bit worn, but they're not overly worn. I mean, there's life left in them, and because they're going to be so difficult to replace, I'll just clean them up and see how we go. The other thing that's here, there should be a nice rubber piece that protects the wiring, but that's disintegrated. The piece of rubber that sits there. So that's a shame, because that I don't think is a part that we can get replaced. But I'm sure I've got something, a rubber grommet that will fit in there nicely instead. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll order a new one of these, because these end parts that touch onto the actual metal plate, that one's worn. These two aren't too bad, but I'll replace all those. The other part, of course, I'll replace will be the metal disc that sits onto here. Just before we finish or start cleaning, this side can come out, and we just need to remember which way it goes back in. So if I'm holding it so I can read the writing, if I flip it over that way, the space is over the top here. So the space on the metal disc is here if I'm flipping it that direction. So that should just lift straight off, I do believe. I don't think there's anything holding it in. It's just sitting on this shaft here. So that should just come straight out. Okay, there we go. And it'll only go in two ways because of these holes here, but obviously we want it to go the correct way. Because I'll have to watch this video back again myself before I put this together. That way I know it's going back together exactly how it's meant to. Okay, so they can all start to get cleaned up. Just to get this metal disc off, there are some pins here. Okay, so a bit of time has passed since I started on this wiper project, and it's just been busy doing other things, but I'm at the stage now where it's ready to be reassembled. But the first thing I need to do is replace the terminals. So they're the existing terminals, and you can sort of see that they're quite worn. So I've removed those. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to locate a replacement set of the bushes, so the brushes. So that will, these seem okay. They're slightly worn, but not to the point where they're not going to function enough. So that will be replaced. That's the replacement contacts there. So these points will be replaced. The other thing I purchased as well was the metal park disc as well. So I got a new one of those too. Alright, let's get started on this. Okay, so I've got the contact points all re-soldered onto those now. Just be careful when you're doing these that you don't let balls of solder fall in there, because it'll stuff things up if that happens. And just make sure that piece fits where it needs to. Now what I can put on there now, I've got this rubber grommet to place in there. So that's got like a slit in it. So I'm able to just place that over all of those wires. If you want to get things perfect, you can probably try and get these wires to sort of sit, not in any particular order. It's just so when it goes on here, they sort of sit neatly out of this terminal. So it might be a little bit of fiddling around. Because you want 3 wires side by side. Alright, so next we want to get the rotor back inside this housing. I need to just add some grease, and I'm using like a pretty high quality grease for that. And I just need to place some right in the centre. Okay, so it is a bit tricky to get the end of the rotor lined up with the piece of metal that it actually sits in, but you'll know that you've got it in the right spot, because the edge of the rotor should be just below the magnets. It shouldn't be sticking above the magnets. So the next thing we can try and do is get this piece put back into here, and the way you need to do that, well, first of all, there's a little slit. That slit lines up roughly over here. So you pretty much just insert it like that, and then don't push too far because you'll hit the brushes. What you want to do is just make sure these screw holes will line up, something like that. You need to very carefully use something like a screwdriver, and what you want to do is push each of those brushes back in. The lighting's not good here, I'll just adjust that. And then slowly just work this whole unit down. Just one brush at a time, because they'll push the brush in and then just push that down a bit, and eventually it'll work its way down. Alright, so just with that small gap, I've used a torch just to shine in there, just to make sure that all of those brushes are actually pressing against the rotor. So that's the case now, and then all I need to do is just make sure these screw holes line up. Again, I'm just going to use a small torch just to shine through there. I mean, you'll find it when you go to put these screws in, and you'll be able to feel where the screw hole is. Okay, so that seems to be running fine. Okay, so the next step of the progress now, we need to get this, the park disc mounted onto the gear here. So that'll sit in there like that. So the way you do it, it comes flat and you need to bend these pins down. The next step then is to bend these over. The next step then is to place this piece in there. Alright, so I want to put the gear wheel in. First of all, I need to place this, that's like a bent flexible washer. So that will go, let me just remember which way it went. Pretty sure it was face down like that, so it's got to get inserted that way. Alright, and then I'm going to put some grease. Actually, I'll put the grease into here first, that'll be easier. So it should be a bit springy like that. That's the purpose of that piece. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off the excess grease off that end piece. I then need to install, there's a washer. The washer goes on first. And you might want to push up on the gear wheel, and then you have this clip to go in next. Okay, that's it, that's good. Alright, so what I want to do now, I might just hook it up and do another test. Alright, okay, so it's another day now, but I've made a little bit more progress. So where I left off yesterday, I was trying to just test it all to make sure it worked. I had an issue where the actual rotor is spinning in the incorrect direction. And that's because the magnets in the actual unit here were in the wrong position. So to test that, all I needed to do was just rotate this unit 180 degrees, and then the rotor spun in the correct direction. That worked, so then I pulled it apart again, put the magnets, switched them around, and then that way the case is in the correct position, so the line here meets up with that little mark there. So it does matter which way the magnets are. So if you do have the same issue where the actual gear ends up rotating in the wrong direction, it's your magnets that are the issue. So now it's fine, it's the gear rotates clockwise. The issue is that if it doesn't rotate clockwise, you're going to damage these pins on there. So I'll just show you it working at the moment. So 12 volts goes on there, and then these are obviously high and low. I think that's the high speed here. The other terminal here is for the parking wire, and we'll have a look at that in a second. Okay, so there we go. So that's that'll be the high speed, and then low speed. Once I put this the unit back into it, we can test the parking. So I'll do that now. Okay, so let's give this a test now. So the wiring on it, I'm going to use smaller alligator leads so I can fit everything in. So the bottom pin here, which the red wire is connected to, that's constant 12 volts. That'll be like a constant 12 volt supply. I'll just plug that over onto here. The next one is ground. So the actual motor unit itself needs to be connected to ground, so I'll do that via that. And then, in order to get the actual high and low speed, when you maneuver the switch, you're actually grounding it. So I need to connect this green lead to there, and then what I'll do, I've got a few leads, so I'll use these. Okay, so the yellow is going to represent high speed. And then the white one will represent low speed. And then I'm running out of colours here. I'm going to use green again for the park terminal. Okay, let's see if I've got this right now. So that's constant 12 volts, and then these two, I'll just leave the park one out of the way for now. We'll test that in a second. So yellow is high speed, white is low speed. And then when either of these are grounded, that's what causes it to run. So we'll just test this now. So this is high, should be high speed. Okay, now low speed. Now to get the auto park working, you need to, or when you actually operate the switch, what actually happens is in the off position, the motor will still have 12 volts, but it constantly has 12 volts, and then what will happen is it'll ground. I think it must be to the high switch. In this case here, it doesn't really matter which one, but when I connect these two, the disc or the gear should rotate and then stop around here. That piece here should be over here, so let's just test that. There we go, so that's the auto park. So I will just get that moving again. I'll stop it there. Okay, grab that park connection, connect these two together. There we go, auto park. Alright, so that seems to be functioning okay. I'm just going to add some more grease into here. Okay, alright, let's get this finished off now. So this piece of nylon, that'll sit in there like that. It's going to need more grease when it eventually gets put together. Just for the purposes of testing, I won't clip this down, but just so you can sort of see it manoeuvring, because when this gets installed, that's got to come off anyway. So I'm not going to worry about clipping that down for now. But the way you would do that, you've got a washer and then one of these clips here. So the washer goes on first, and then this clip goes on second. But I'll just leave them off for now. And what I will put on is the cover. Okay, so there we have it. There's our completed wiper motor. And what I'll probably intend on actually selling this, and probably by the time you watch this video it'll already have been sold, but at least you'll be able to see what these look like inside and how to actually replace those worn out parts. So I'll leave it there, and thank you for watching my videos.